Hi, LCMSD families. This is your superintendent, Brett Geithman.
And your hall principal, Dr. Tony Chavez.
The other week, or last week, we did a parent coffee chat. We do these about every 6 weeks or so. Sometimes they're content focused. The one last week was on the depth and complexity icons that are being implemented at Hall Middle School. Um, here's the agenda. I'm going to just run you through it real quickly. But those first two parts were really just for the in-person participants. We had Ms. Griffin there running us through a lesson. Thank you so much, Ms. Griffin. Really appreciate that. And now we're going to jump into the rest of our agenda. Dr. Chavez, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So, why depth and complexity now? Well, the original creators of this project sought to answer one question. How can educators prompt students to go beyond a basic understanding of content and elicit critical thinking at an expert level, regardless of topic content? Well, with a grant-funded research, this project was then born. So we're going to show you a quick video just to help you understand what the icons mean.
The Depth and Complexity Framework is designed to help students think more critically and deeply about various subjects. It consists of 11 icons that prompt students to explore content in a structured and meaningful way. Here are the icons, along with their meanings. Language of the discipline. Meaning focuses on the specific vocabulary, terms, and expressions unique to a subject area. Example, using scientific terms like photosynthesis and chlorophyll in a biology lesson. Details, meaning encourages paying attention to the specific facts, elements, and components within a topic. Example, identifying key facts about the water cycle, such as evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Patterns, meaning looks for recurring elements, themes, sequences, or events within a topic. Example, noticing the pattern of economic cycles, such as booms and busts in economic history. Rules, meaning focuses on the guidelines, principles, and regulations that govern a topic. Example, understanding the rules of grammar and language arts or the laws of motion in physics. Multiple perspectives, meaning considers different viewpoints or interpretations within a topic. Example, analyzing a historical event from the perspectives of different countries or groups involved. Change over time, meaning examines how a topic evolves or changes over a period. Example, studying the development of technology from the invention of the wheel to modern-day automobiles. Ethics, meaning investigates the moral implications or ethical issues related to a topic. Example, debating the ethical implications of cloning in medical science. Big ideas, meaning identifies overarching themes, concepts, or ideas that connect different areas of knowledge. Example, exploring the concept of freedom across history, literature, and political science. Unanswered questions, meaning identifies gaps in knowledge or areas that require further exploration. Example, discussing what is still unknown about space and the universe in an astronomy class. Across disciplines, meaning connects concepts and themes across different subjects or fields. Example, investigating how the concept of energy is relevant in physics, biology, and environmental science. Trends, meaning recognizing emerging patterns or shifts in thinking within a topic. Example, observing trends in global climate change and their impacts on weather patterns. And each icon serves as a tool to delve deeper into subjects, encouraging students to think more critically and make connections across various domains of knowledge.
So now that you've had an opportunity to hear a brief understanding, you can also see that we do have this reference sheet available for our students as well, where they can see the icon, have the definition, as well as some verbs in terms of what they might expect. So feel free to ask your child about these icons and what's popped up over the course of the week. When you ask the question, why now at Hall are we introducing depth and complexity icons? We have long been interested in making sure that our students have access to rigorous content, as well as providing a space for differentiation to meet every learner where they're at. These depth and complexity icons serve as a wonderful transition from our standards-based grading and equitable practices to continue our focus on rigor and depth of knowledge by providing us a common language across content areas. So these icons will be seen in classes from PE to music to language arts to science and social studies. It's also a vehicle to push classroom discussions. We'll talk more about that on the next slide. The other component of the implementation of these icons is it puts the heavy lifting on the students, allowing for us to really create an inquiry-based learning environment for students, for them to explore their thinking. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Geithman now, and he's going to share with you how this complements our Vision 2036 work.
So our Vision 2036 was again developed last year with about 1,200 plus inputs. It ultimately created the aspirations that you, our community, have for LCMSD. I'm actually going to work backwards here and start with the system portrait, but the focus of this is really creating a dynamic and engaging learning experience for all students at Hall Middle School and beyond. So by implementing the icons, they automatically increase the engagement and then ability to, I'm gonna move to the adult portrait now, collaborate with one another. And so creating those flexible structures for collaboration are essential inside of our classrooms, and the icons really support that. When we think about the graduate portrait, we have two elements that we really zoom in on: inquisitive critical thinker and ethical and responsible contributor to society. So as you've seen with the introduction of the icons, there's a number of icons that really push to those greater ideas of ethics, and then also how it implements or impacts the greater good of society. When we think about critical thinking, we hear this time and time again in education. Sometimes it feels really ambiguous. Well, what does critical thinking really mean? Critical thinking is really demonstrated through these icons, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. So the icons themselves, the history behind them is we had three researchers, Kaplan, Gould, and Madison. They were funded by a gifted and talented grant. And this grant really aimed to identify what are the ways in which experts think so that they can continue to elevate the conversation and depth of advanced placement courses in high school, as well as international baccalaureate courses in high school. So this research really dug into how do experts think about their content? And what they came up with were those 11 original icons, the colored ones, of the ways in which experts dive deeply into the content that they're studying. You could see here, right, there's critical and creative thinking skills. We have content imperatives, and Dr. Chavez is going to talk about those in a moment. Disciplinarian thinking, and universal concepts and generalizations. So again, it's a way for students to really identify the type of thinking that they're using and maximize that learning potential. The icons themselves, right, the elements of depth and the elements of complexity. I'm not going to read this slide to you, but we will have this slide deck available, but it explains it a little bit more.
Moving on, as Dr. Geithman shared, the content imperatives do look a little bit different. They're black and white in color to indicate different grant funding was used, but they offer a way for students to unlock the meaning of an area of topic or study. This provides a layer of differentiation, which we like to call low floor, high ceiling, giving every student an opportunity to engage in the content. These content imperatives help educators differentiate the core curriculum so that it's aligned to meet the needs and abilities of high achieving and general ed students, as well as our multi-language learners. It does call for a more sophisticated resource of information, more analytical thinking to understand the subject matter. And in some cases, you may see these paired with the other depth and complexity icons to have students thinking in multiple ways, using the content imperatives with depth and complexity icons to really push their thinking. When we think about the language of the discipline here, we are focusing our attention on the language that students will engage in order to support struggling students in reading comprehension and writing fluency. It provides a focused approach in terms of one aspect of reading or writing at a time. The dedicated lessons that will be driven out of this a lot of times will align with vocabulary and literacy strategies, as well as discussion-based interpretation, which is really important and demonstrates the impact here. We also have seen in the data that use of these depth and complexity icons have improved ELA test scores for lower achieving students. As we talk about how the depth and complexity icons will interact with our curriculum currently here at Hall, the good news is that we have just recently adopted a new English language arts adoption, which is our EL education, which is really focusing on students to read, think, talk, and write. And I'm going to zero in on the thinking and talking component because one of the components of the depth and complexity icons is engaging students in the thinking skills that experts are using, having them engage with peers in order to have that academic discussion, use that academic language, the language of the discipline, to help revise their thinking, think about a way a peer is presenting information, maybe revise their own personal thinking, because what we know about, if you can say it out loud, you can write it. So we want to encourage students to be able to think about the content more closely using the icons, engage in discussion with their peers, and then create meaningful connections to the content that they can then write about.
We wanted to show a couple quick examples. The one on the left is actually from the Depth and Complexity blog. So these are parabolas. And what the student did was, you can see the big details icon in the middle. And I'll start clockwise starting at noon. So that first petal represents details. The second one, rules, then language of the discipline, trends, unanswered questions, and parallels. So again, just one way you can see this in math. The other one is actually from our math committee a number of years ago, went and visited a school that really inspired our work with CGI implementation district-wide. And that school also used the depth and complexity icons. So you can see here how it's worked into even a lower grade mathematics lesson.
And this is what you might see at Hall with the depth and complexity use icon use already in classrooms. On the left, you see an attendance question that happens daily in Dr. A's room, where their students are examining the trends of how they respond. And in Mr. Beach's room on the right side, you see that all the depth and complexity icons, as well as the content imperatives, live on the front whiteboard. However, the two that are being focused on in his lesson for this day are the language of the discipline and ethics, as he has students pointedly thinking in these ways in order to address his content. One more example of him encouraging students to incorporate the icons into their notes so they can see the connection. And then the last example, he had students complete these depth and complexity icon frames, which is what this is called here, where students were able to answer questions about themselves in order to share some information about themselves with Mr. Beach, as well as familiarize themselves and give them original practice and organic practice with using the icons in class.
And Dr. Chavez, the ones that you're showing, those are really our, beginning of the year, right? We're talking about the first 2 weeks of school, using them within the content, using them for introductory type of exercises. And so it's just going to be really neat to watch how this develops over time and how students internalize the icons themselves.
I can't wait.
All right. Do you want to close this out today?
Thanks for joining us. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
All right. Thank you so much.